This is Linda Lehrhaupt, and I'd like to welcome you to the Mindfulness-Based Teacher Project. Podcast number 9, Don't Dumb Down. One day in the Tai Chi school where I was studying back in 1978, I saw a sign on the board announcing a class in Qigong. And underneath those words, it said meditation. And I was immediately pulled into it because for some time I had been questioning, what is meditation? I had read that Tai Chi was meditation in motion, and I had been studying it for about 9 months. But we never really talked about it in our class. And I thought, oh, okay, Qigong. Maybe here I can learn something about what meditation is about. And so I arrived at the time that was announced on the paper, and I was a bit late. And when I walked into the room, I saw a group of about 8 students standing in the middle of the room. Their arms were chest high. Their palms were facing inward. The fingers were almost touching. And that's all they did was stand there. Nobody looked at me. I think most of their eyes were closed. And then suddenly a very small Chinese man appeared in front of me and smiled and waved with his hands that I should come in and sit down on a bench. And he just kind of gestured to me with a signal as if, sit here and wait. And I did. And I wasn't aware. I assumed that the students were performing a Qigong exercise. And I just thought, okay, I'll sit here and watch. And watch I did for a long time. And there was such a stillness in the room. But I kept wondering, after 5 minutes and 10 minutes and 15 minutes, how in the world those people were standing there with their arms still up. Try it. It's not easy. And I watched the teacher, who at that point I understood his name was Mr. Chan. I watched him just standing in front of the group. He took the same position that they did. And as he settled down into the posture, I had such a sense of stability and quiet strength, not brute force, but a very deep sense of calmness and rootedness. And every once in a while, I would see him open his eyes, observing the students slowly from left to right. And there was also not the sense of observing to see if they were doing something wrong, but rather through his gazing at them, he helped to support them in their standing. After about 25 minutes, he came out of the posture and slowly walked to each student and made slight corrections in their posture. And if he saw that someone was drooping or wilting a bit, he would just tap them very lightly and give them a big smile and kind of nod his head, and slowly the hands would come up to the level that they should be. I was amazed as I continued to watch, because I felt in myself that as I watched, a sense of stillness grew within me. And I was also deeply touched by the way Mr. Chan would motivate and encourage the students to keep going. And there was nothing harsh or sharp about it or corrective, but more as if he would come near a student and lend them his strength, his internal strength to just keep going. After about 45 minutes, the exercise ended. The students did a kind of Qigong massage in which they slowly rubbed their arms and legs, leading the energy downward, and then ending with a kind of a tapping on all parts of their body, which I later found out was a equalizing massage where one would regulate the chi so that it was evenly distributed throughout the body. At the end of the evening, I signed up for Mr. Chan's Qigong course and remained his student for the next 5 years until I moved to Europe. Being a student of Mr. Chan meant entering into a way of learning that I had never really experienced before. For example, we never knew how many classes would be devoted to learning a particular exercise. We would simply continue studying a form until Mr. Chan felt that we had reached a certain level of mastery. It could be 1 month, it could be 4 months. And then when we would finish a particular exercise, the next week we might start again from the beginning with an exercise that we might have learned 2 years before. And Mr. Chan would begin teaching that exercise that we had learned as if we were beginners. We would start right again with the basics, paying a lot of attention to the posture, to how we would hold our hands, to how we would stand. And I remember that I would be amazed at the level of specificity. I might be holding my hands at a level that I thought was fine. And then Mr. Chan would come and adjust them, maybe half an inch. And in that adjustment, I would feel as if everything was falling into place. And then I knew that little things mattered. That it was not just a useless correction, but that there was a very deep precision to what we were doing. At the same time, as the years went on, I understood that sometimes if that had been done earlier, I wouldn't have yet been ready to absorb the subtlety of what the difference of a half an inch might mean. And what became clear over the years, that there was a rhythm in what we were doing, that we would return again and again to a Qigong form that we thought we knew. And in that learning again, there would be a deepening and a ripening of what had been slowly nurtured before, but was not yet ready to blossom to its full fruit. Mr. Chan also had a very special way of teaching an exercise. Whether it was an exercise that we already knew or one that he was showing us for the first time, he would always ask us to stand and watch him. And then he would do the exercise 5 different times. And he would ask us to look at different parts of his body each time. One time we would look at the head area, another time at the torso, another at the pelvis area, and then the legs and feet, and then the whole body. And it was like when we would watch the whole body, it was like all of a sudden all the different separate parts that we would be observing would come together in one gestalt. It was an amazing way to learn because it not only taught me the intricacies of each part of the form as it related to different parts of my body, but it also trained a way of observation that I find even today, 30 years later, that I can apply to things in my life where I really get a sense of the inner workings of things rather than just the outward gestalt. So being a student of Mr. Chan meant not only being a student of Qigong, but really being a student of learning how to learn. After I had been a student for almost 5 years, I remember one night watching him teaching us an old Qigong movement that we had learned many years before. And we were doing our usual way of observing 5 times. And I had seen this move so many times, but somehow on that night, my body and my mind and my eyes were unified in a way that I really hadn't experienced before. And then something clicked into place. Something that had been puzzling me about the move for a long time just seemed to appear and be perfect. And at that point I said, oh, and I'll never forget the way Mr. Chan looked at me, his eyes bright and shiny, a smile coming to his lips, and him saying, nodding, finally. In that moment, something very special happened. I would call there was a kind of a transmission of a very old knowledge passing between teacher and student. In no way was he teasing me or making me feel as if I was a bit slow. That finally was said with such heart and in a way deep satisfaction that he must have felt as a teacher, feeling the harvest of all the teaching and effort that we had both exerted over the years to come to that moment where my body knew. My body finally grasped what was happening in that movement. Beyond intellectual knowledge, simply settling in deep into my muscles and deep into my bones. I learned many things about being a teacher from Mr. Chan. One of them was about what happens when we really have faith in the capacity of a student. There's a tendency to worry about whether or not students can do a meditation to a certain length. There's been a lot of discussion in the mindfulness world about how long the meditations should be. And there's been research that supposedly shows that one gets as much out of a 15 or 20-minute meditation as one does out of a meditation that's 45 minutes. And so if you ask me now, 35 years later, what was the most important thing that I learned from Mr. Chan? It would not be the Qigong exercises that I learned, although they are very dear to me and play an important part in my life. What he taught me was that if I just stick with it, I can do it. He taught me to have faith in myself because he had faith in us. He didn't dumb things down so that it would be lighter or easier for us. We may have, in that way, got it quicker, but the sense of it really being a deep part of ourselves would not have been the same. I was able to stretch because he believed in me. He believed in my capacity to be able to stay with it and also to continue to go on. The 5 years that it took me to get to the point where I could say, oh, were in no way a waste. And there's always the search now to try to find ways of teaching something quicker or learning something quicker. But the truth is that if it's going to go to any kind of depth, if it's really going to do something in one's life and set a new path, it takes time. And we have to, when we're teachers, be able to support our students through that time of staying with it and letting it go deeper. I hope this story encourages you to not take the shortcut when it seems that a student is becoming disappointed, or maybe you yourself are becoming disappointed in the progress of the class. Well, that's a whole other story. Things that go deep take time. Trust in your capacity as a teacher that you can support students, because the most important thing that you can really give to them is not the fact that you have something incredible to teach, some wizard exercise. The fact is you've gone the course, you've done the training, and you continue to commit to that because there you are standing in front of a class. Honor that sense of staying with it and the depth that you have achieved in your own practice, and let that be what can be your greatest support and greatest teaching to your students on this path of mindfulness. Thank you for listening.